Forensic Files, Peter. Also on the web at clevercatholic.com. Forensic Files, Peter. Some of these ideas come from scripture scholar Bart Ehrman, self-described atheist agnostic. I guess you can also be a theist agnostic on the spectrum. Dr. Ehrman doesn't believe because of suffering and evil. He should read my Jesus Redeems God. He is a great expert, though. Using his techniques, one can draw never-ending and fascinating connections in the Jesus phenomenon. Like the show Forensic Files, can we make a case, for example, for the type of person the Prince of the Apostles is: fickle, impetuous, and vacillating? In the show, just a small piece of evidence, like a hair or drop of blood, can send a man away for life. In this case, we have three witnesses who are definitely biased and united in saying Jesus is Lord. What's wonderful, however, is that their witness statements are unrelated and independent and don't know, and if they did know, don't care about the other witnesses. A detective's dream. Three bank robbers being questioned in different rooms who just met for the first time at the bank and never spoke to each other. St. Paul in the 50s says about Peter, "And when Cephas," Peter in Aramaic, Jesus' tongue, "came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he was clearly wrong. For until some people came from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. But when they came, he began to draw back and separated himself because he was afraid of the circumcised." Galatians 2:11 and 12. Paul thinks Peter a wishy-washy, fickle man. The synoptic, meaning one eye, Gospels, Matthew 80 AD, Mark 70, and Luke 80, count as one witness. Matthew and Luke independently used Mark as one of their sources. 90% of Mark is in Matthew and Luke. What they leave out is another paper. Often the quotes are direct. Only Mark, though, quotes the original Aramaic Jesus spoke, like Talitha cum, Mark 5:4, and Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani, Mark 15:34. Mark also gives more details in events than Matthew and Luke. Mark alone, for example, says Simon, who helped carry the cross, is the father of Alexander and Rufus, Mark 15:21. Matthew and Luke's readers wouldn't know Alexander and Rufus, so they omitted them. In Mark, Peter says impetuously, "Even though I should have to die with you, I will not deny you," Mark 14:31. Matthew testifies, Peter got out of the boat and began to walk on the water toward Jesus, but when he saw how strong the wind was, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Matthew 14:30. He sank like a rock. John is another independent witness. Unlike Matthew and Luke, who often quote Mark verbatim, John never directly quotes Mark, which would have shown he used Mark. John is a completely different style and take on who Jesus is. Mark intimates Jesus' divinity. John boldly proclaims it throughout. Only John names Peter as the one in the garden who rashly cuts off the high priest's slave's ear, John 18:10. Like Mark, John tells Peter's three denials, but in a different way, John 18:15-27. After all, they're using witnesses to the same event. What makes for the authenticity of these witness statements is that they portray Jesus' second in command as fickle, impetuous, and vacillating, the opposite of what would be expected if you made it up. Jesus is Lord. How could his appointed lieutenant, the Rock, be a coward? But we can conclude that something extraordinary must have happened to this obviously rash, indecisive, and inconstant man who was martyred for the faith. Because he saw his publicly executed friend alive again, he laid down his life for his belief. You can't top that witness statement.